Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Shri Radha Gopinath ki, Gaur Premanande. All glories to His Saṁvidam. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshuruminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Shri Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavasam Shri Rupam Sadhavatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sahavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnavadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Richatari Ramchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So, good morning, everyone. Goedemorgen. Bonjour. We're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, and we're reading from Canto 8, and this is the 6th chapter. The demigods and demons declare a truce. And we're reading verse number 32. And then I think I want to kind of go back over some of what's been read previously, but we'll start with this first. Please repeat. Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā. Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā. Saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ. Saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ. Udyamaṁ paramam cakrur. Udyamam paramam cakrur. Amṛta-arthe parantapa. Amṛta-arthe parantapa. Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā. Saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ. Udyamam paramam cakrur. Amṛta-arthe parantapa.
Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā. Saṁvidaṁ udyamam paramam cakrur. Amṛtārthe parantapa. Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā. saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
udyamam paramam cakrur,
udyamam paramam cakrur,
amṛta-arthe parantapa,
amṛta-arthe parantapa.
Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā,
Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā,
saṁvidaṁ kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
udyamaṁ paramam cakrur,
udyamam paramam cakrur,
amṛta-arthe parantapa,
amṛta-arthe parantapa.
tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā,
Tato deva-asurāḥ kṛtvā,
saṁvidaṁ kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
saṁvidam kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
udyamaṁ paramam cakrur,
udyamam paramam cakrur,
amṛta-arthe parantapa,
amṛta-arthe parantapa.
Okay, what's it all mean? Tataḥ,
Tataḥ,
thereafter.
thereafter,
Deva-asurāḥ,
deva-asurāḥ,
both the demons and the demigods.
both demons and demigods,
kṛtvā,
kṛtvā,
executing.
executing,
saṁvidam,
saṁvidam,
indicating.
indicating,
kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
kṛta-sauhṛdāḥ,
an armistice between them.
armistice between them.
You know this word armistice? No. Armistice is settling for peace. Yeah. Udyamam,
Udyamam,
enterprise.
enterprise,
Paramam,
paramam,
supreme.
supreme,
Cakruḥ,
cakrur,
they did.
they did,
amṛta-arthe,
amṛta-arthe,
for the sake of nectar.
nectar,
Parantapa,
parantapa,
O Mahārāja Parīkṣit,
Mahārāja Parīkṣit,
chastiser of enemies. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, O Mahārāja Parīkṣit, chastiser of enemies, the demigods and the demons thereafter made an armistice between them. Then, with great enterprise, they arranged to produce nectar as proposed by Lord Indra. Shall we repeat together? Why not? O Mahārāja Parīkṣit, chastiser of enemies, the demigods and the demons thereafter made an armistice between them. Then, with great enterprise, they arranged to produce nectar as proposed by Lord Indra. Indra symbol, yes. Purport. The word saṁvidam is significant in this verse. The demigods and demons both agreed to stop fighting, at least for the time being, and endeavored to produce nectar. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur notes in this connection, Samvit yudhe pratignyayam achare nam nitoshane sambhashane kriyakare sanketa jnanayor api. The word samvit is variously used to mean in fighting, in promising, for satisfying, in addressing, by practical action, indication, and knowledge. Lots of meanings to the word samvit. You might get a little sense of why Sanskrit can be challenging to learn, because you get so many meanings for the same thing, same word. And there's a running joke that most words in Sanskrit also mean either it's another, a word will be a word for either lotus or elephant. Practically every is important, and then he suggests why it's important. The word for word meaning is simply indicating, but it also has a sense of promising, and this seems to be the point here, that there's an agreement. Usually there's no agreement. The demons and the demigods generally don't find anything to agree about. They find everything to disagree about. Indeed, they find everything to fight about. And so this portion of the Bhagavatam is describing a quite unusual situation. And it's unusual in so many ways. It's celebrated throughout, historically, the Sagara Mantana, the churning of the milk ocean, is found celebrated in many cultures of not just South Asia, but also Southeast Asia. Famously, in Cambodia is this huge temple, Angkor Wat, in which there's a very large sort of bas-relief image of just this story of the demons and demigods churning away with Vasuki as the rope. So it's a very and it's a fascinating story in so many ways, and especially, I would say, brought out in the Bhagavatam is, well, many things, but one is the degree to which the Lord participates. The Lord is, of course, giving initially this advice. He is also, you could say, in the background, not explicitly present, but he's in the background of the whole show as time. And he kind of suggests that in the beginning too, when he says, in effect, to the demigods, he says, now is not your time. Now is, time is such that you're not going to be predominating, so, let's face the reality and see what can be done. Well, all of this will come about how the Lord is involved in so many other ways, wonderful ways, even humorous ways. He appears as a cosmic tortoise, and we find out in Canto 2 that the real reason why Kurma has he's actually arranged this whole pastime, and the real reason, you know what the real reason was? Yeah, he was itching on his back, and so he needed some scratching done. So why not engage the whole universe? Let's stop the fighting and let's scratch my back, okay? Like this. Also, he seems to play, he's playing different roles, all for this one purpose, to facilitate, his own purpose and then the purpose of the demigods. And there's a curious verse, a few verses before, I don't remember now which one it is, where is it the Lord or is it Indra, I don't remember which, who suggests when you do this, here it is. Oh, demigods. It's verse 22 and 23. Kṛtvā kṣira udadau sarva virut trina lata oshadi. O demigods, cast into the ocean of milk all kinds of vegetables, grass, creepers, and drugs. Probably translates Oshadi as drugs. And then he goes on to explain, you make Mount Mandara the churning rod, Vasuki will be the rope, and with undiverted attention, you can do this churning. Well, what struck me was the Lord is being something like the primordial chemist here. He's saying, if you mix these things together, you're going to get a nice result. Yeah, I'm reminded in, what is it? 4th canto, when Prithu Maharaj appears, Lord Brahma reads his palms and also his feet. So Lord Brahma is the primordial palm reader. He reads his palms and feet and says, we can see you're the Supreme Personality of God. So here we have the primordial chemist. And the primordial chemist, the Lord, is giving a formula how to produce the nectar. Now, it's interesting that he's suggesting you add these vegetables, grass, creepers, and drugs. Growing things. Why is it interesting? It's interesting because this echoes, so to say, it suggests another kind of preparation which is very desirable to the demigods. You know what that might be? Yes, soma. Now, what exactly is soma? This has been a subject of great speculation for centuries. The latest thing I read is, because everyone's been looking for what is that soma plant, what is that plant, what is that plant? And recently someone said it wasn't one plant, it was more than one. It was a mixture of plants. In the process of preparing soma, here's the point, or part of the point. In the process of preparing soma for the rituals of sacrifice, first the plant or plants are ground with a stone to produce the juice, and then the juice of the plant is sent down a kind of, apparently a wooden sort of channel through a filter, and the filter is made of wool, sheep's wool. And then it comes through the wool, and then it's mixed. And what's it mixed with? With water and milk. And then it goes into 2 wooden cups. And then it's offered. Okay, so what does that have to do with all of this? Well, we're talking about some vegetable material, and we're also talking about milk. And there's a mixture, and what is this mixture? It's something which will be very desirable to the demigods, right? Soma is extremely, it's a much wanted substance. And why? Well, it seems to be because soma was something of a, as they say, psychotropic intoxicant. The descriptions from the Rig Veda suggest that it was very powerful. The demigods would get it, but then also apparently the priests would take part in it. And let's see if I can find something relevant of this from Rig Veda. We have a recent translation of it. the entire 9th mandala of the Rig Veda, out of 10 mandalas, is about the soma. And a lot of it is about the preparation of the soma, and at the same time there's praising of the soma. There's over 100 hymns in the 9th mandala. Don't worry, we're not going to read these. But should I read part of one hymn? It's going to be difficult to translate, I have to say. This is very, very poetical poetry. Okay, I'm going to start in the middle. This is hymn number 108 of Mandala 9, verse 19, in case you're checking. O Soma! So addressing the Soma, I rejoice in your fellowship with me every day. O drop of Soma. Many things, O brown one, because apparently the mixture becomes brown. Many things, O brown one, get me down, way down. Go past these barriers. Both by night and by day, Soma, I am at your udder. Udder? The cow's udder. Both night and day, Soma, I am at your udder for fellowship with you, O brown one. We have flown like birds far past the sun that scorches with its heat. Okay, this is suggesting when you drink this drink, you're going to be flying high. You're going to be flying beyond the sun. While being groomed, dexterous one, Soma, you impel your speech upon the sea. Right. O self-purifying one, you rush toward ample, much craved golden wealth. Being groomed, purifying yourself on the sheep's fleece. This is referring to the filtering process. As bull, you have roared down into the wood, that is, into the wooden cup. O self-purifying Soma, you rush to the rendezvous with the gods, being anointed with cows. Cows here referring to the milk, which is mixed. It goes on and on like this. And I see already you're kind of going, huh? So I'll stop there. I just wanted to give you a little sample. There's over 1,000 hymns in the Rig Veda of similar style. And it's been a source of much fascination and consternation to many. But the point I wanted to make is this connection between Soma and the nectar that the demigods here are interested in producing, as are the demons. Well, together they are making an agreement. So let's think a little about the idea of agreements. Agreements can be verbal. Nowadays, most agreements, if not all agreements, in the business world are made with contracts, right? It has to be written, it has to be signed. This, you might say, is a product of our age. The age of Kali means that speech is no longer taken so seriously as it has been in the past, even though the principle of truth. The notion of truth still remains to some extent in the age of Kali, although the other principles of religion have been largely lost. There's still some idea of truth. But, okay, let's get it down in writing. This seems to be a general practice. And of course, written contracts makes for a whole industry called the legal industry. Lawyers make business because of contracts and the questioning of contracts and the challenging and so on. But as we see here in this case, it's an unusual sort of contract because usually the demons and the demigods are not agreeing to anything. How is it that they're now coming to some sort of agreement? Well, by suggestion, and we can say suggestion, I may get back to this, of the Lord. He's not really commanding, he's saying, you know, it'll be a good for you if you do like this. And so they go to Bali Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj said, yeah, sounds good, let's do it. Why? Because they're all interested in the same thing. Like they're all interested in the Soma. And so they agree for some time, as Prabhupada says in the prayer, at least for the time being, they agree to cooperate. And what sort of cooperation, what sort of activity is this going on? It's a churning. What is churning? What's happening when there's churning of milk? What's being done? Yeah, there's a separation. What's being separated from what? Casein. Okay, sounds good. We have another chemist over here. Casein. From the whey, yeah. I think they also just speak of butter fat. Yeah. And then butter fat, when you separate, it will come together, and then what can you do with butter fat? Make ghee. Ooh, yeah. And ghee is very interesting for the Brahmins. Brahmins like ghee. Some Brahmins like ghee too much. They eat ghee too much. But ghee is, of course, what is then used in what process? Yajna. So we have a cycle, and this is a cycle that Krishna speaks of in the Gita, chapter 3. And he says, if you don't take part in this cycle of sacrifice, which is given in the Veda, then what happens? Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati haya aga ayur indriya arama, the enjoyment of your senses, mogam parta sa jivati, mogam jivati, your life, his life, her life, whoever hasn't been engaging in sacrifice is moga, it's a waste. Mistake, moga, useless. And so the churning, what is the churning? It's a kind of generation. It's a process of generating. And as we know, what's going to happen in this account of generation, lots of things are going to be generated. Eventually the amṛta will be generated, but in addition so many other things, starting with what? Kalahala, halahala, kalakuta halahala, which sounds pretty terrible. Halahala. No, we're being attacked by the halahala demon. Sounds like something from comic strips. Anyway, so lots of things are being produced. Now, here's a philosophical issue to consider. The whole subject of creation in the Bhagavatam seems to be rooted in a philosophical idea of what's called Satkaryavada. I know it's a bit early in the morning for this, but let's give it a try. There's Satkaryavada and there's Asatkaryavada. You may be happy to know that Vaishnavas subscribe to Satkaryavada. Aren't you glad to know this? You can tell your friends. We are Satkaryavadins. We are not Mayavadi. We are Satkaryavadi. And what does that mean? That means that the effect of a cause is there in the cause. So everything that we experience in the world is present in the cause of the world. What is the cause of the world? Krishna. So what does this mean? One may then ask, so is there anything actually created? Or is it simply recreation? Is it simply a reproduction of what is already there? It's an interesting question. It's relevant for, it could be relevant for preaching when encountering persons who are dedicated to followers of Abrahamic religious traditions. Why is that? Because one thing that all three, all three Jewish, Christian and Islamic traditions subscribe to with regard to creation is that creation is done ex nihilo. Creatio ex nihilo. Ex nihilo. You know this expression?
Nothing.
Yes, ex means out of, nihilo, nothing. Out of nothing. Actually, this idea is also there in modern science, you know, when they talk about the Big Bang coming from zip, from nothing. So the idea is that God creates out of nothing. Now, there's a logic to this, this understanding of creation, which is actually a nice logic. And I want to suggest, let's appreciate that logic. And that is, they want to emphasize that everything that is exists as a result of the will of God. And as they see it, to say other than ex nihilo, to say creation, you know, that there is eternal material energy and then the Lord creates out of that, would be a reduction, a compromise of God's will, according to them. Whether or not that has to be seen that way, we might question. All right. In any case, I want to go back to churning, because we have things getting created out of this churning, in this case from an ocean of milk, so something already exists, and in a wonderful way. Even Lakshmi appears out of this churning. Lakshmi herself, Lakshmi Devi appears. And Ujjaishrava, who else is going to appear? Anyone remember? Dhanvantari is going to appear. Yeah? Anyone else? Elephant. Airavata. Yes. Yes. And a horse. What's the horse's name? Uchchaishvara. Uchchaishvara, which means sort of calling loudly. Anyway, yes, so wonderful things appear, and all of this is indeed the result of churning. But another way we can think about churning is mixing, and this comes back to this mix of herbs and milk, which is in soma. So if we think about mixing, then we come to another interesting point, because what I want to suggest is that the Bhagavatam, as we're coming now, this is 8th canto, so we're getting closer to the 10th canto, and what's going to be especially interesting in the 10th canto, what is already hinted at in several points throughout the first 9 cantos, is the notion of rasa. And what is rasa? There's a definition given by Bharata Muni in his Natya Shastra. There is what is called the Rasa Sutra. And the Rasa Sutra, do you want to hear the Rasa Sutra? No. Yes? Oh, okay. It goes like this: Vibhavanubhava Vyavichari bhava samyogat rasa nishpatti. So what it's saying is there's a samyoga, there's a coming together, a mixing of vibhava, anubhava, vyavichari bhava. And when there's a mixing of these three, vibhava is ecstatic feeling, anubhava is experience, I don't remember the technical translations, vyavichari bhava, all of this is elaborated in Nectar Devotion. Then samyoga, then rasa nishpatti, then there arises rasa. And what is rasa? Rasa is there's a special word for it that I just now forgot. But anyway, it's intense emotion. Rupa Goswami is going to take this idea, as do all the acharyas of rasa theory. They take this idea from Bharata Muni and they unpack it. This is what Rupa Goswami does. His whole Nectar Devotion, you could say, is an unpacking of this one sutra. Especially after chapter 19, because up through 19 he's speaking on Vaidhi Bhakti, and then Raga Nuga, and then Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. So all of this is coming from mixing. And this brings us to a final point, which is relevant to the fact that a certain season begins officially tomorrow. What will we be celebrating starting tomorrow? Yes. So, Damodar, what does Lord Damodar do? What does the Lord as Damodar do? He takes the products of churning. And what does he do with the products of churning? He makes a mess. He makes a mess. But it's a very wonderful mess, and therefore we celebrate. We celebrate for a whole month the mess which is made by Lord Damodar. And why do we celebrate it? Because it is a celebration of the sweetness of bhakti, which is produced in the relationship between the devotee, Mother Yashoda, and Krishna. Mother Yashoda has been churning. And what is she churning for? She's churning for Krishna, special yogurt and butter and so on. And then all of that she wants to give to Krishna, but what does Krishna do? Krishna can't wait. We recently heard or realized or speculated, however you want to take it, an understanding about this in relation to Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta prayachati tadaham bhaktuparitam ashnami prayatatmana. What does he specify we can offer him? Patram pushpam palam toyam. He doesn't say anything about milk. So the vegans will say, he doesn't say offer me milk, so we don't take milk. But there's another way to understand this. Because Krishna was saving for his Damodar Leela to show he's not waiting for the milk to be offered. Rather, because he wants it so much, he's going to go and steal it. Yeah. Okay, so there's that churning, and then finally there is a churning in which we participate, and Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, mat chitta mat gata prana bodhayanta parasparam 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 katayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Yes. Slow getting it out today. Yes, he's saying what do devotees do when they realize that Krishna is the source of everything? They start churning. What do they churn? Kata, Krishna kata. And how do they do it? Bodhayanta parasparam. They do it with each other. They engage with each other. And out of this comes a nectar which is satisfying and which is enjoyable. So from this, we have a process, we call it Sankirtan. Cheto darpanam marjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidya vadhu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purna amrita asvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijaya te Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Purna amrita asvadanam. Amrita, nectar, asvadanam, we taste. So, tasting nectar. So, the demigods and the demons, fortunately, they decide to cooperate to produce nectar, to keep their program going, ultimately, the cosmic system going. But all of this, we can say, is an anticipation of another churning, which is for us much more interesting. And that is the churning of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's name, form, qualities, etc. Hare Krishna. Questions, comments, discussion, anything about any of these things, points. Soma, about one of different sorts of nectar, about chemists. Yes.
I have two questions. The first question is, why the demigods need soma? Are they happy and blissful and have nice lives? So why do they need something more? So that's the first question. Because here in a way we can understand why people want to get intoxicated, because life gets quite miserable. Like heaven and planets, it should be.
There seems to be a special trick to get this microphone. For our friends watching from a distance, maybe you can repeat the question.
The question is, why do demigods need soma and their lives easy going enough? And like here in the material world, but everything gets quite miserable and people want to get intoxicated. So why do demigods need extra?
Yeah. Soma seems to be associated very much with power. So they may feel that, okay, we have a nice life, but they also want power, especially Indra. Indra seems to get his power from Soma, which then he bestows on his worshippers. There's this cyclical idea. So it has to do with power, but there's a lot going on in these sacrifices, and power is a major part of. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
And the second question is, recently I read in Practice the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes that this Nectar of Devotion teaches us about the one button which, when switched on, brightens everything everywhere.
One button?
Yeah, when switched on,
Click.
turned on, brightens everything everywhere. And that's in the context of rasa and devotional service. So that's what I remember.
So switching on the switch of rasa.
That's the kind of, I was thinking, wow, this is the ultimate antidepressant. That's the kind of.
The ultimate what?
Antidepressant.
Oh, antidepressant, yeah. There you go. The ultimate antidepressant. Read Nectar of Devotion.
A new phrase for Sami.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
This kind of soma rasa for devotees.
Yeah, very good. Yes, Mother.
I was just realizing when you were talking about the kurma, actually one of the main reasons why he wanted this pastime was because he was having an itch. But then it also means that the demons were doing devotional service.
Yeah, yeah. They were participating.
Then when they do that? Because it's the only time we've heard of that they're actually serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
That's a nice point. And it reminds me that Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur tells us that we should be appreciating Hiranyakashipu, because without Hiranyakashipu there would be no Nrsimhadev. If there were no Hiranyakashipu, for what reason would Lord Nrsimhadev come? There wouldn't be a reason. So the demons seem to act as a kind of contributors, if you like, to the pastimes of the Lord. And of course, in general, the Lord appears to re-establish religious principles, and it's the demons who are making trouble, which calls for the Lord to appear. In this case, though, it seems like one step further. They're actually serving the Lord, and that's nice. It occurred to me, now comes the speculation time, that there could be a sort of Jungian way of interpreting this whole pastime, if you like. Do you want to hear that? Carl Jung talked about how psychologically we have our sort of light side and our dark side, the shadow, he said. And his idea was You know, it's therapeutic to kind of face your shadow, right? You hear this sort of talk in a lot of New Age psychology. It's about, you know, making friends with your shadow or whatever. The demons, they're like the shadow of the demigods. They're always there. They're, you know, wherever the demigods, there are the demons. And so it's like you don't get the one without the other, and similarly you don't get the benefits of the demigods without the trouble of the demons. We don't get the illumination, speaking now simply in material terms, any sort of illumination or knowledge without something dark, right? Something disturbing, some ignorance. And so if we take it that way, then you could say the Bhagavatam is offering a kind of account of how a cooperation between the light side and the dark side can produce something which ultimately can lead to spiritual perfection. Yeah, that's okay. Enough Jungian speculation for this morning. Yeah. But yeah, serving demons, serving. It's interesting though to consider that in the spiritual world we understand there are no demons, but there's still the rumor of demons. Still the rumor of demons. And furthermore, in the spiritual world, I was going to mention that, you know, you can read this whole story also as a story about cosmic politics. And as they say, as I've mentioned before, religion and politics, two sides of the same coin. Well, in the spiritual world, we hear there's also politics. Huh? Really? Yes. There's the left-wing group of gopis who will have nothing to do with the right-wing group of gopis. Right? Big problem in the spiritual world. Big, serious problem going on. It's all politics. Wherever you go, you're not going to get rid of it. Sorry. Sorry. We just have to get used to it. So, this pastime is preparing us. Cooperation. Cooperation is a good thing. There's so much to be said about that. Right. Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Huh? Microphone.
Thank you, Mahārāja, for your class. It's always a pleasure to listen. Question is connected with your joke about Sanskrit and everything can be lotus and elephant. I was always wondering, you know, reading translation of Bhagavad Gita, how same words are having different meaning. And we are told that Sanskrit is a perfect language, which is very specific, concrete, and you cannot manipulate it. But it looks like you can do everything with it. Contrary, in the English language, when you say you're a fool, it means you're a fool, and there's no kind of way out. But in Sanskrit, it can also mean you are intelligent, in a subtle way, or it can go around. So that's just my question, especially because
how does that work?
Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
so something in that light you can.
What's the thing about the Gita?
I think this Bhagavad Gita, it has so many
Interpretations.
And
Yeah.
very puzzling.
It's puzzling indeed. Yeah. The Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa philosophy is much of it, and also what are called the grammarians. They make this argument that Sanskrit is it's sort of absolute language. It's not what do they call natural language, which means that words are arbitrary and have arbitrary meaning. That's ordinary language. It's arbitrary. They argue that Sanskrit is not like that. It's there's an absolute meaning. But then I don't know what they would say to this fact that actually Sanskrit would take any word. It can mean so many different things. I don't know what they say to that. But how it comes to how a word comes to mean so many different things has to do with context. If you look in a Sanskrit dictionary, it'll typically give a meaning and then a reference where that particular meaning applies. This is, it's not really answering your question, but it's explaining why it's complicated. I mean, take the word dharma. Dharma, of course, has many shades of meaning within our tradition. But then you take the same word dharma in the Buddhist tradition, and it has a quite different meaning altogether. A dharma is, in Buddhism, it's a moment in time. Moment in time, yeah. Okay. And like that, you can go on with philosophical terms and how they mean different things in different circumstances. Therefore, we understand we need the guidance of acharyas, who then help us. They say, no, this is how we're understanding this. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru Vakya. We take the combination of the three. And that's how we keep from getting lost in the stratosphere of Sanskrit language. Yeah. But sometimes the acharyas will also disagree with each other about how, not exactly disagree, but they'll say, well, yeah, but you can also take it this way. But usually what they're doing is they're just churning the nectar. They're not really disagreeing. They're saying, yeah, but it's so rich that you could also take it this way, and you could take it this way. And you could just like in our purport today, you kind of wish Prabhupada would elaborate, but he just quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti, who's saying that the word saṁvid can mean whatever it is, 5 or 6 or 7 different things. And then he leaves it at that. Right, so what? What to do with that? Well, there's certainly a lot that could be done with it. An example of how that's done is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 24 of Madhya Lila, the 61 explanations of the Atmarama verse. That's a case where it's quite specific. It says, okay, for this, there's 11 words in this verse. And if you can take this word and it has 6 different meanings. So if you apply each one of those meanings, one after another, you're going to get, 6 different meanings to the verse. Now, multiply that by the 5 meanings of this word, and then multiply that by the 10 words of that, and then add all the cha, because the word cha comes at least once in the verse. Atma ramas cha munayo. And then it becomes 61 meanings. I'm waiting for the day that some really expert Sanskritist will take that and then just give us a list of 61 meanings. I mean, translations of the verse. That would be really interesting. So this keeps, the Sanskrit keeps us, it can keep us busy. And it can keep us churning also. And that makes it nice.
Maharaj, you mentioned politics in the spiritual world.
Uh-oh, I shouldn't have said anything.
No, I was thinking in the whole story, Lord Krishna, or the Lord was kind of promoting, or let's say stimulating selfishness, because I mean he was telling the demigods to cooperate, but it was for their at the end for their own gain. So how should we see it that you can cooperate for your own? I mean, it's
that's where, just for me personally, it helps to think in a sort of Jungian way about the whole thing. Is, okay, don't try to always just fight your shadow, but at some point just acknowledge that it's there, and maybe gradually, by, so to say, working with the impurity, you come to the purified position. As we see also in the Bhagavatam, it's very much in the very beginning, in first canto. How does it go? Narada is saying, isn't it the case that that which is the cause of bondage is also the cause of liberation, if properly applied? I think that's my... Right. Thank you all very much. Have a nice day. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanande.